Live from Studio A in PressCorps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark PressCorps. It's a live, community-based call-in show, fielding your thoughts on and tales from the Foxhole War. So join the Discord right now through the link below, sign in through the call queue text channel, and hop in the voice lounge for a chance to share your story. Tonight's developer guest, lead developer, Markfoot. And now, your host, 13-time winner of the Geoffrey Jennings Award for Excellence in Journalism, Geoffrey Jennings.
All right, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps here on the, pretty much, I think this is about as close as we've gotten to actually hosting the show as close to the end of a war as possible. Might be corrected on that. I think there might be one other instance, but I can't remember for the life of me if that's true. But we are in the conclusion here, in the immediate aftermath of the 64th conflict, War 64, an East-West war that involved the colonials coming back in a valiant thrust eastward and finally breaking the Warden 6 war win streak. And we certainly going to be a lot of discussion about that. I have an inkling. Warden saying, well, we weren't really trying. We sent a lot of our guys to you, and the colonials saying, well, we really tried hard, so it should count. And it is what it is. Additionally, no mechs, which have been long been desired here since they were announced. Since actually the new variant was announced, the kind of the spider looking thing with four legs that would clamp down. That looked very exciting to use, but alas, was not able to use it for this particular war. No word yet on if that is going to take place. If that's whether we're going to see them in the next war. If simply, hey, that's just the way it is. That's the sandbox. Maybe we won't see them until next year, and that would be a shame. That would be a tragedy in its own way. I know there's a lot of folks out there who look very forward to using those mechs, but hey, it is what it is. So in any case, we do have our developer guest Mark, who I believe has been busy with the latest dev branch. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were just it's been a busy last couple days because first we were planning on pushing this update a little bit further and perhaps even like running another war, but things fell together quite nicely later on Friday and on Monday morning, and we just decided to go forward ahead with it. But what that meant was that it really put us in the pressure cooker.
Right.
So we've been really kind of scrambling and really pushing it to get us out the door. But I think we're going to make it. So.
Yeah, so we might be catching you with a little out of breath here, which is funny enough because this week's questions are going to be a bit of a doozy. Hope you're ready for them. I mean, you better be. I shared them with you beforehand, at least mine.
Yep.
Okay.
I am ready.
But actually, real quick, on everyone's mind, what is the state of the mechs and the walkers since we didn't get to use them at all in these past two wars?
Yeah, the plan is that we'll see them next year. So.
Oh man! Oh no! So many. 82 DK is going to be in the streets rioting. That's tough. That's really rough. They love those. They love those mechs. My goodness. Maybe give them a server. Maybe give them a private server to run around in. What would you?
Yeah, maybe we'll think of something. It definitely sucks. But hey, you know what? Like, you can't knock us for not being true to saying the wars are player driven. If we were to have our way, we wouldn't want this war to be ending so soon, right? And we often hear that we're trying to like artificially lengthen the war. Well, if we could, I would love to do it because it would have been great this war to artificially lengthen it so that the mechs can come out. But we tried for 2 wars, and at the end of the day, if it's a player-driven game, and if players end up playing in such a way where the war ends early, there's not that much we can do to change that, right?
Right. Okay. Well, it is what it is, and we're going to get a lot of feedback from that, I'm sure. And you know what? Our question that brings me to my first question here. Full disclosure with my opening questions. All of my questions were shared with tonight's developer guest prior to tonight's show at my own behest. I do so because in giving them time to prepare, I believe that they give the clearest answers. Additionally, they're about to receive plenty of questions that they didn't have time to prepare for from tonight's callers. So that is what it is. So, in any case, first and foremost, the logistics game's inclusion of manually gathering and spending tech has been viewed as a harsh burden on logistics. What's the status of the tech system's development, and what are your considerations on its seemingly outsized effect on logistics?
Yeah, I've been reading about that, and it's definitely something that we have seen. Um, this tech system is still fairly young, so I think it's safe to say that we will make more changes. We just came off of the biggest when this came out in Update 37, the biggest piece of feedback that we heard, and I think some of it we actually heard on this stream. I think Stranger Days brought it up, and his feedback was like echoed by many other players that the tech splitting was a big problem. So that was the big focus, and we had focused on getting that fixed, and I think we have fixed it. So players no longer need when you tech something that isn't the main choice, you're no longer hurting your team. You can just go make your prototype, and it will still count. So we've gone over that hurdle, and we think it's worked out quite well. And obviously, there's other hurdles like this one. Um, I think that with this problem in particular, we haven't seen any real imbalance coming out of this. So I don't think that for now that's not a problem, but players still feel like this is a burden. So that's obviously an issue, and that's obviously something we need to take a look at, and ask why are they feeling that way. And I think we will. I don't have any. It's something that like this is kind of like the next step. So it's like we got to sit down. We're gonna have to work on it because we just overcame the last problem, right? So
Right.
we got to take it one step at a time.
I think part of the problem is just the mental realization that there are more resources, more crap to sift through with the aluminum. I mean that had been around for a little bit, but just the aluminum and the my goodness, I've already forgotten. I did a lot of scrapping this war too.
The iron.
Yeah, the iron. Thank you. Yeah, the aluminum, and the iron is just like more stuff to sort through, and it's absolute hell for new people. I can only imagine. Like going, okay, what the heck did this explode into? What do I do with this aluminum? And I usually find them scattered about in boxes. But in any case, yeah. So I did a lot of comments on the Reddit thread. I don't usually take questions from Reddit, but there were a lot. There were actually a lot of good Reddit threads this week that actually where people were honing in with good, less emotionally charged things to talk about, which is very refreshing. I should mention, personally speaking, but yeah, keep an eye on that. I'm holding out hope for Reddit, at least our subreddit, Foxhole one. In any case, moving on. In an always on, persistent world concept like Foxhole, there will always be long periods of population imbalance at some point. How does the game currently adjust to long-term population imbalance, either immediate or in the long term? And what is your assessment of the game's current balance between freedom slash rewarding work versus pacing a war in a satisfactory way, right? Do if you don't do if you don't.
Yeah. So in terms of the player imbalance problem, I'm not going to sugarcoat that one. That's always been a problem. It's been a problem 4 years ago. It's been a problem now. It'll be a problem 4 years in the future, and it's probably gonna be a problem in every single persistent war game that we might ever work on. Because it's just if you break down the fundamentals of it, you're dealing with hundreds. You're dealing with thousands of players in each war. Like even in the small wars, we get like 10 to 15,000 players playing them, and these days we certainly get like more than that. This is like in total people who log in and out. And there's just no way you're going to be able to have any kind of perfect balance. It's an impossible problem. A game like Counter-Strike or Warcraft, obviously you only have like a couple people in the lobby. You can balance it. You can balance it perfectly. In a persistent world game like this, it's just the fundamental issue and challenge that we're always going to have to contend with. Now, this used to be worse. We put in things to help mitigate this problem, not solve. One thing everybody knows about this, this is new. It's like we do have a global queue that minimizes the imbalance.
The much celebrated global queue.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's kind of a necessary evil type of thing. We also have the longer spawn times, and the goal with the spawn times is like if we can't equalize the number of simultaneous players, maybe we can try to equalize the amount of player time per side, right? So like the theory there is, two people playing for 5 minutes, another player playing for 10 minutes. It's not going to be equal. Definitely not going to be equal. I'm not going to say it's going to be equal, but it helps a bit. So that helps a bit. The queues help a bit, and anything else, we might explore more things in the future. We have explored some things in the past, like giving a bonus in one area or the other. I think though one thing to note is that this population issue it tends to be the most whenever one faction starts to lose a war. So in the majority of wars actually over the last year, this hasn't been a big problem in the majority of like the time spent in a war. But it's always in the last couple of days of the war when like the morale drops off for one team. Imbalance is quite heavy, right? It is there, and if people want to point it out, I agree. It's definitely there. But in those wars, at least it's balanced out by the majority of the war, it being fairly like equal, which is probably why it hasn't been as big of a problem for a while. However, when wars are shorter, it just means that one side has had a much stronger start, and the path to victory is much closer. And in those wars, there is going to be more player imbalance, and we have felt that, which is why the last two wars, if that has been felt more strongly, that's why, right? Like one side starts to like steamroll the other, and then the other side, their like morale drops off, and then therefore you have much more player imbalance in that war. But in the wars where it doesn't happen, most of the war is fine up until the end, right? So that's the situation of it. That's like the reality of it. We deal with it in these ways, and all we can do is find more and more ways to do it. And we've heard some suggestions from players. Maybe there's more things we could try, but at the end of the day, this is a bit of like it's an ongoing challenge. Let me just put it that way. Right?
I think that's why I'm looking forward to the next updates. The removal of, or how do we say it? Small arms fire no longer destroying structures. I'm actually looking forward to that. So that would mean, for instance, a rifle would not be able to do any harm against a watchtower. You would need, I believe, 14.5 or 12.7. It's heavier duty guns and calibers in order to take down even just a watchtower and foxholes and things. And that's a shock to the system, as you explained before. But I am looking forward to that because the hopeful outcome is that I think it'll make the lines more static and a little more balanced, not balanced, but more stable, and hopefully something that can account for wilder population swings back and forth, particularly round the clock when there's a little less activity. at certain hours. But of course, then you run into the natural. Then I'm also predicting at the same time we'll float back to the PVE problem, which I personally never really experienced that much. I thought it was, I don't know, maybe that was just because I'm trying to think back to, did I ever really feel PVE? I don't think so. I think it's well. I think that was before the trenches. So now that we have trenches, and now that we have this new change, well, I'm just excited to see what's happening next.
It might get too static, and then we'll hear the other complaint.
Yeah, I mean that's we've talked about this before, but that's the catch-22 of like, yeah, Foxhole really captures the war experience. Really captures, how you dig in trenches, and then, you really get that war experience of being in trenches and shooting out the side and all the chaos there. People don't realize that, you live in trenches for literal weeks and months on end, and seasons. In actual, like in World War I, people were literally living in those trenches for long periods. And anyone in the military can tell you, or at least what I've heard, is that being in the military is long periods of boredom, punctuated by moments of extreme terror. And like this is a video game, right? You're expected to have fun during a play session. So that's reality creeping in. But in any case, going on to the last question I had, and this is actually more of a, we're going to take a clip here. The following is a 5-minute clip from No Man's Land Live, run by the 82DK Regiment. Just huge shout out to twitch.tv/No Man's Land Live. If you're listening to this, go to that URL, look them up and follow them, because they have an excellent podcast where they talk about every update, talk about Foxhole, and their format is incredible. Their discussion is very healthy, and just the way they go about it is fantastic. It's honestly what I envy for. I don't always agree with their assessments, but just the way they do it, that's what I pray for on Reddit, which is almost impossible. But it's No Man's Land Live is doing great. So the context here is that the hosts are discussing how War 63's disappointingly early conclusion stems from long-standing issues that the veteran community has been trying to address for years now. And now that War 64 has also been cut short to a degree, because we didn't get our mechs, right? There's going to be more of that consternation. So we're going to switch now to that clip.
But I think it is important and it is good that it happened the way it happened, because hopefully stuff like this actually gets to the devs rather than there's enough precedent that we can say people trying to give feedback is not enough. It clearly doesn't get to either Mark or whoever is the decisive factor into things like this. So I'm personally hoping that something as extreme as a war ending before the content is even unlocked is going to actually at least make them raise an eyebrow, right? Say, well, maybe something didn't well, maybe we could have done something better ourselves in this one scenario at least.
Yeah, I mean, we've tried this type of protest before, PAX Visions from a few years ago, but like we'll keep trying, and one day they may deem it possible to look down to our lowly depths.
What they need to really do again is what they did last time, even though it didn't really hold much results to my extent, is they need to have another meeting with the community people, like for example for the logistics thing, where they had like everyone in the same room and they got to herd certain people. I mean, I feel like that's something to like. I understand they want to fix things the way they want to fix things, but they have to really like try harder to get in touch, just to know what are the real problems, especially if they're stumped, because there's nothing wrong with admitting you don't know how to fix it because you don't really know what the issue is. You try to do everything right, but it ends up always failing. There's nothing wrong with just asking like, hey guys, what do we need to do?
Well, I'm afraid for that, because most of the community feedback is unconstructive, and I think that there's a certain bit of bitterness probably from the development team, because if you go to FOD or to Reddit and look at some of the quote unquote player feedback, it's not constructive at all, and some of the feedback is not only is it not constructive, it's outright destructive. Like if they were even to begin to heed those thoughts and ideas, it'd be a problem. So you got to imagine it's a tough place, just trying to empathize just a little bit, not to fully defend it, but.
I empathize with that section of it, but if it's all if they have to sift through the drudge just to pick out the gems of constructive feedback in the channels, like why aren't they thinking? I don't want to say this is outside of the box because it's not really, but why aren't they thinking like, right, once a year, we'll send our community manager round to all of the leaders of all of the clans in the community just to get their honest feedback on the game once a year. You know, like, that is just off the top of my fucking head.
It's so funny because like before you actually said what you said, I was like thinking I wanted to butt in after you finished to point out like this feedback issue goes directly to the community manager, and then you instantly went in with that point, and it's so funny because like solving the issue that Cass just presented, right? How do you solve that issue? It's simple. You get a community manager. What does the community manager have to do with it? Well, the community manager should be in charge of actually figuring it out for the team, saying, well, I have went through the feedback, I have identified, people that actually constantly brought constructive criticism to the table, and maybe we should look into these opinions for more feedback and such, right? That's a process that if it does happen, it's so somewhere in the back end of things that is invisible, because from what I'm seeing and from what I'm talking with other, at least wardens, because I don't have access to colonials that much, the only people that I have ever heard were consulted about stuff regarding the game are in 90% of the cases the people that agree with them full-heartedly. So that's the precondition to get any words into something that like you're going to be allowed to speak. Like you can see Mark and KFC on PressCorps all the time showing up and talking to whoever wants to jump in there to talk to. So yes, they're going to sit there and listen to you, but they're not going to actually hear you, is my conclusion personally.
Yeah.
They're going to listen to you, but they're not hearing you. They're just like, giving you exact, like, it sounds, to me personally, it sounds like they're reading off of predefined answers for the most common, stuff people ask. And they just keep that to, creating this illusion of, oh, we're extremely in tune and extremely interested in hearing what the people have to say. But it feels like there's actually zero chances of you actually coming up with something and them saying, well, that might actually get into the game. That might actually, or not necessarily exactly, because like, again, I don't think anybody is going to consider themselves some sort of game designer that can give a perfect feedback or some perfect modification.
I think people understand the game, the way the game works, and they can make judgments based on that. You don't need to be a game developer to know that. You know what I mean? Like you can literally have played the game for years, like some of us have, and know it that intricately that you can tell that something's just not going to work. And I just don't think you need to be a game designer for that. If you know Foxhole, then you know Foxhole.
But what we offer ultimately, what is relevant. Everything else said, yes, we're not game designers. And yes, we will have imperfect balance suggestions, but we are the authorities on what the player experience is. Being the biggest consumers of that player experience, we've got pretty relevant feedback on what creates a positive player experience, what creates a negative player experience. And that is arguably if you want to oversimplify it, the most relevant factor to player retention, which this game has been struggling with tremendously. Like I think I can boldly say the game struggles with player retention. I don't think that's a huge controversial statement.
So there's a lot to unpack there. First and foremost, I just realized I covered up the names with the text, so my apologies. I literally just noticed that. But I would like to hone in on the community aspect, and there is a clear consternation, not just from 82DK, but you see it all the time on the Reddit, you see it all the time on the Foxhole Discord, clear consternation from Foxhole's veteran community that, about how they're not feeling, about not feeling like they're being heard. They're not being heard, regardless if the devs, you guys think you're listening to them. So how would you respond to that? It's a little rough and tumble, but how would you respond to that?
Yeah, it's so for full disclosure, I didn't hear that video prior to this.
No.
So I don't have a prepared answer for what was in that video, and in fact, I wasn't quite able to finish it. I got to like 4 minutes something, but I think I got the gist of it. I honestly feel that it's a fair criticism, and it's not my place to tell anyone, that they're wrong about that, or that we are listening. You just gotta trust us, type of thing. At the end of the day, if players or player groups don't feel like that's sufficient, that's a completely fair thing. And I think the best thing that I can only do is to try to explain our process of it, and and that could hopefully be helpful in some way. So generally speaking, one of the things that I feel is just difficult for perspective that is really from the dev side is that we get the amount of feedback we get is it's a lot, right? Especially as the project has scaled up over the last couple of years. It's not like pre-alpha where we had just the community was like a couple of thousand people and we could talk to everyone, and it's got to the point where like I get like DMs every day. I get like dozens of DMs. Max gets like dozens of DMs. We get posts on Reddit. We get pings on FOD. We have an unending stream of feedback, and that's from outside of the company. From inside of the company, I get feedback from members of the team all the time. I'll have Julian, who's making a suggestion, of Adam, who's telling me how he feels like part of the UI is broken. There was just a lot. So it's difficult. It's something that I don't expect to be understood, but it's not like some single mouthpiece. It's not like some single feedback that we're just refusing to address. It's a vast amounts of sources, right? It's like hundreds. So in order not to drown in it all, we need some way to filter through this feedback. We have at the end of the day, we have to figure out what goes into the schedule, and we have to have some way. In figuring that out, there needs to be a filter. We can't address everything, right? But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. In many cases, and I would say in most cases, when I hear a piece of feedback, I actually agree with it. And in many cases, it's already planned to be fixed. It's planned to be addressed, or it's something that it will fit into the schedule, isn't held to a whole bunch of other challenges, and we can just go ahead and do it. And this falls under the numerous things we've done with players asked for static cranes. We made static cranes. They asked to address the tech splitting problems. That was a recent one. They didn't like scarcity of fuel, and they felt like players weren't able to use tanks as easily. We addressed that. So there's a lot of stuff that it's I hear about it, and it's great. This is great. We're on the same page. It's just a matter of fitting the schedule, and it might not come this month. It might not come next month, but it's going to come at some point. In some very, very rare cases, super rare, super rare, does someone come to me with something that's where I'm just totally this is just not something that's ever going to make in the game. I fully disagree with this. This is against the goals, against the vision. And this is just we're never implementing this. This is a bad idea. That's very, very rare. Very. Now there's this other category that is very common, is where it's more in the gray area. We agree with parts of it, or maybe we agree with all of it, but there's some sort of a big challenge that blocks it from being something we can actually action right now, or maybe even in the near future, right? And these challenges can be scheduling. That's a big one. We just simply don't have the time and resources, right?
So I think part of the, and yeah. I think I can't disagree with anything you're saying, because I'm not a developer. I'm not in the offices or virtual offices. But then I think the problem is that there's a disconnect. And maybe it's not just that, but if there is something beyond that, we can't tell what it is, because first and foremost, there's that disconnect between what you think and then what the community thinks, and then we're just not seeing.
Let me ask you.
Yeah, go
sorry.
ahead.
I mean, there was more that I want to finish there, but
oh, yeah.
I will cut it short to reply to your question. Is it's I feel like. My question to you, right, is what is your take on it? When you hear, let's not even talk about Foxhole. Let's talk about any other game, right? When you hear there is a disconnect, the devs are not listening to the player base. What does that mean to you? Does that mean to you that that there is what somehow there's some clear-cut feedback that's devs are just refusing to action this, or does it mean just some sentiment, or does it mean what does that mean to you?
I think it means that, at least what I've seen, is just how when you leave things open and vague enough, which I understand you have to do. Um, Thousands of people that make up the community will individually interpret that potential, that vagueness, uh, 100 different ways individually, right? So then, when things slowly come together over the preceding months, and you know, 20% is feeling this is completely off base, another 17% is like, I don't know, should we complain about this? We don't know yet. And then there's another 50% that's just does unaffected. I don't know. It's the lack of clarity, because I think people. I know you said not thinking about Foxhole, but it's hard to say. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to remove that from the equation, because the reason why Foxhole is so unique is that it's an incredibly unique concept, right? If this was if Clapfoot was doing a remake of Command and Conquer, right? That's a checklist thing, right? Just do what Command and Conquer did in 2000 and just do it better. And, don't call it Command and Conquer because you get sued. But this is different, right? This is something that's rarely done, and there's so much potential there. There's no playbook, there's no blueprint. So when things go off base as to what the people want, or at least what they hope to get, it
And I don't mean to get
it stirs a lot of emotion, right?
Like I feel like I don't want to get too far down in
Yeah.
this, but when you say like people though, right? That's the part that is very that I really want to like. If we're gonna be talking about this in a transparent way, like when you say people, right? That's the part that's hard. You're right. There is like a disconnect, and the part that is difficult for me to process that is I talk to like dozens of people a day, and often in the same day, one person will tell me something, and another player will tell me something completely different. Like they want the opposite
on the same topic.
On the same topic. So that's why whenever I hear something like the player base versus the devs, it's just hard. It's not something that I'm even like. No one is wrong, right? I don't think anyone is wrong. I don't even think I don't even think anyone is wrong to even feel that way. It's completely fair, right? I'm just saying that it's difficult for me to process that because like we don't see it that way. We talk to different people, and different people have different perspectives. Some people think that partisans is too strong. Some people think that partisans is too weak. Some people think the war is too fluid. Some people think the war is too static. Some people like there's this long list of things, and if I may, I actually want to complete my canned answer, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Because there were some things that I wanted to finish, even though I'm very interested in steering off course here.
We'll close it out too, but yeah.
Yeah, so like going back to what I was saying is that there's the easy feedback. We can usually action that. There's the rare feedback that we just don't want to answer because we don't like agree with. But most of it is in the gray area that is difficult to action because of scheduling. We're choosing between
people won't get an answer for 8 months at a time potentially.
Yeah.
An answer, and by answer I mean something like, "Hey, this is the thing that you asked for 8 months ago."
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we're often contending with like this is a good thing, but there's 20 other good things. We got to choose the good thing.
So then let's pivot to what steps Clapfoot can take, if any, to better the channels of communication, or the fancy words. Just throw the community a bone to a better extent. Because I'm not questioning that you guys aren't listening. I don't think anyone can. Well, as in aren't responding to DMs, aren't responding to
I mean, I'm not even. Yeah, like honestly, I'm not even here to say that we are right because again, that's not something we can judge, right? Like we can do what we do, and it's not fair for us to say, "Hey, we're right," and we are listening, and you're wrong. Like at the end of the day, if certain player groups feel that way, there's that's their view. That's fair, right?
Okay, so then, just a couple of suggestions off the top of my head. Can there be more? Oh my goodness, I just forgot the word. Um, like a checklist of things, like I don't know, trenches, towing, uh, static lines. Like you put that on a page on clapfoot.com or whatever, foxholegame.com, and then that's just it's forget the term for it. My goodness, it's like a grocery list of items, right? Things that you hope to work on. And then people can reference that, cross-reference it. That they can say like, oh, they are actually working on this, and maybe you can put a vague timeline on it. So like in 3 months, or we're scheduling this now. Would that be too much work, more work than it's worth?
Yeah, no, and to be fair, I think something that we have done a poor job at in the past is in communicating the long-term plan. I think we could have done a lot better job at that from the beginning, and I think that a lot of problems come from us not having done that like better, right? And I think it's just our development
roadmap. I'm sorry. There you go. Roadmap. That's well. I mean, you do have a roadmap, but a more detailed one that can tackle like a lot of the features that people have been asking for.
Yeah, and this is just a really big topic that I would like enjoy one day, maybe even sitting down, spending like an hour on it.
Yeah,
it's like I almost
think
want
we
to
need
talk
to
about
at this point. We need to get to our
It's
colors.
like we do have to get to the colors, and we can cut like my answer short. I will cut it short, unfortunately, but it's one of those things that I don't think can be answered in like a few minutes, because doing that will just create more like misunderstandings. In my opinion, it's just going to
Sure.
be more like peace at this and that. It really needs to like needs to be sat down and like explain things in much longer form. But if this is all we have time for, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
To kind of make my final statement on that, I don't think that we're doing the best job. I do think that we can be doing a better job, as we can be on most parts of the project. So hopefully things are going to get better on that front. But at the same time, I hope yeah.
It's getting harder too, because people are mentioning that there was a server before. I was on that Discord server where a lot of the veterans were like people who were really active with feedback. That's more of a separate space where you could maybe get some more in-depth feedback. There was, I think, according to 82DK, maybe the community, so Max can go around and like talk to the bigger clans and be like, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Not even necessarily that I'll promise anything, but just what are your thoughts? And I guess I don't know. In some ways, 82DK is already doing that every couple weeks on a 2-hour podcast.
It's like my last point.
Yeah, last point. I'm so sorry. This is such a big thing, though.
But it's like a lot of it too is like, I think something that we felt over the last year too is that our schedule is starting to get more and more tight. There's a lot of things that we got to get in. We got to get in some sort of a clan system. We got to do. There's just a really long list, and I think if some of this is being felt, a lot of it too is that we're we're realizing that we can't do. There's just only a certain amount that we can do before like 1.0, and it would be a little bit bad if we went around to go around asking people, hey, what is the thing that like you want, when we kind of know that like there's not a lot of time to
you
like
can't
change
even do anything about it.
And are we just going to be leading people in the wrong direction, and then players are just going to think, hey, like you guys are saying you're listening but you're not, and just kind of create a bit more of that problem. So that's another thing on top of the stack that I just wanted to like throw in there as well, right?
I don't envy you right now. Not at all. But you love what you do, right? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think we'll have to get to it. So in any case, yeah, that was not going to come to any conclusion whatsoever. But we got to get to it. Something a little more conclusive is Lek and his love for trains. Lek, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps. You haven't been on for a while, but it's nice to see you back here.
Oh yeah. I haven't been in a while because I've been busy with shit. I've been real busy. Nice to be back in the office. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Did you? Apparently, you were going to talk about logistics. Just that one word.
Oh yeah, it's something that I feel like hasn't been talked about in a while, and just still isn't where it should be. You know?
In what ways?
Mostly in the sense that people, like specifically, there was a conversation Max, aka Crazy, was having with someone in the Dev Branch discussion channel, and it was the specific last question he asked was, okay, how exactly do we make logistics? Like one of the issues that he was talking about was how do we make logistics feel like there's less work without having to end up with situations where like tanks feel like they're candy and you can just have a million of them and spam them out and they're worthless and that kind of thing, right?
Like kind of like pre-update 26, where we
Yeah,
had that
like
problem.
the old, in like during port base era where it's like you had just tanks being shot out by both sides constantly, and it was more or less about like APF or not APFA.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
About advanced ammo factory
Yes.
snipes and about like the nukes and shit, right?
Mhm.
Like ultimately, Logi just it's kind of it's not got to where it should be, that perfect middle ground between scarcity and lack of and like good rewarding like gameplay kind of thing. And I just kind of wanted to chip in my own thoughts as to what they could do to arrive at that conclusion where you have roughly the same amount of outcome, but the required work to achieve that same level of productivity is like reduced a lot, or even made more engaging to the players.
Yeah, that's a huge point of contention, because as much as I do enjoy my mining sessions where I'm just listening to either the radio or just a podcast or something, for a lot of other people who just want to do things, that hurts.
Yeah, it's like like every once in a while I'll go really hard and I'll do nothing but Logi for like an entire update kind of thing, and I'll do like something big like a storm cannon or whatnot. But every time I've done it the past like roughly 2 years, it's been the same. It's like it doesn't really change beyond getting a harvester and getting a sledgehammer. Like those are the only real changes to Logi that you experience through any point of the game.
I don't know.
And
well, actually, I don't know. I think we can go off a lot on that first one. So I guess I'll ask Markfoot. Mark, do you think that logistics should be a second job? Do you think that it's an imbalance that people should be able to get a more direct access, not direct access, but the chain of events, right? Getting your sledgehammer, going to the depot to get your truck, or even making one from scratch, driving to the pile, getting the scrapping, and then maybe even a flatbed. Is it too much of a separate thing of the backline and the front line, or maybe that's the experience you want? Where is your head on all this?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think that there should be a separation between logistics players and the front line, and there shouldn't be this in the majority of cases. In some cases it's going to be different and not all the same, but in general, like logistics, the goal has been to have a separation, either separation by like session or separation by player. So some players that are doing Logi and they're supplying it, they're playing almost like a support character, helping like kind of, it's a stretch, but like a healer, healing like a combat player, a Logi player supplying the front for a combat player, or perhaps like planning something like ahead of like an operation, Logi players doing it kind of like ahead of time, and getting everything all set up in their storage depot, and then doing the operation on like another day. That always has been the goal. At some point, I know it was just you log into the game with a few moments, you hammer out some stuff, and you have a tank. And I know that was a big point of contention for a very long time. But we did it this way because the unique thing about Foxhole is that no other war game has, is that the logistics are run by the player, and we wanted to make sure that that part was going to be that we were going like 100% on it, and it wasn't just sort of this like random thing that you had to do. It wasn't a button that you just had to push. That there was this separation. People did have to plan ahead, put in a storage depot or move it into a seaport and drive a freighter. And this is not something that everyone enjoys. I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's not what I like. Just have a button that I can push so I can have a tank. And unfortunately, it's like we can't please everyone, right?
Is it safe to say
I
that?
feel like that's a.
Go ahead. Like it's your call.
Oh, I feel like that's a bit of a like straw man type thing. Like, I don't think most people want to be able to just push a button and get a tank. Like, most people enjoy the fact that, at least in my mind, enjoy the fact that when you kill a tank, it matters. Like, people often brag about their like tank kill stats, mostly because of ego, but like because people recognize, oh hey, they've killed X amount of tanks. That means something. Like, there's like people know that like the resources that go into things. I don't think that's something that people like don't recognize, and that's what they want changed. I think that the biggest issue is that it really, like, to use the term, it really feels like a second job if you want to get anything done. Like, you have to really just have a lot of free time on your hands if you want to do anything cool.
Should someone who wants to use a half track and there's none around, should they be expected to? I'm sorry. If they start making one, should they be expected to be able to use it in the same session in which they make it? Right? There's no half track around. There's no materials around. Let's just say an empty town hall for whatever reason. You gotta go mine, you got to go to the refinery, you got to go to the vehicle depot, fuel it, and then start using it, and then start actually like planning with it. Can someone expect to do that in the same session? Do you think, Mark?
I mean, I think that it is doable. I don't feel like that should be the majority of the way that the game is played.
Or even the average.
Yeah. I believe that there should be planning, and the kind of operations that we see from the Wardens on the weekend or other operations that we've seen in the game, the planning step is an important part, because it like otherwise logistics does it's so it's not it's something where that separation creates some, even if it's very basic, right? And I think the argument of like it's boring, it's grindy, I think that's a fair argument. I do feel though that separation is important to get that level of that sense of planning, right? Like, if you think about the real World War II, going back to that feeling of, okay, well, they had to produce this many tanks. They were sitting there. They had to be moved around. There was a supply chain, right? Like, I think that's an important...
I think the biggest issue isn't like this is like there should be like setup. I think most people's issue is that it's just unfun. Like, even like it's like there's sort of an issue with like doing the work for Logi has for a while now just felt like work, right? Like, there's a reason people refer to it as a second job, not just like something that requires a lot of work, or not work, but like
I think we should hone in on the word unfun, because I think that really gets to it. Second job, that's kind of a meme to a degree. But no, you strike a very, very important point, which is that like no one, I don't think anyone really argues that logistics shouldn't be a thing. That's the game, right? The problem is that part of the game is the thing that a majority of people want to avoid.
Is lacking.
You'll find people who are really obsessive with it. I kind of enjoy my sessions to a degree, but I'm weird. Cronus Winter is weird. But for I think it's safe to say 80%. I'm pulling that number out of my head, but I think 85% of the people just don't. The player base doesn't enjoy it, but the thing is, they need that, so they kind of lean on that 15%, and then is it Is that fair? That kind of relationship is very tepid to a degree as well. I don't know. I think there has been some improvement because before, or rather now, you have there's been a boost, right? So you get that satisfaction a little sooner. So for instance, when you finish a pile, it pops and it explodes into other smaller pieces, and you get like a random boost, like plus 86, salvage or whatever. Like that actually made things a lot easier and actually surprisingly more engaging in the very technical sense. But still, it's tricky, and there's a lot of small things, super small things that can lead up to one big headache. But yeah, I don't know. Mark, what's your reaction to all this? And I think we'll close out there. I know, like, you had so much to talk about.
Oh god, no, this doesn't even really hit on the main point I
I
wanted to
bet.
make. Could I actually, like, real quick, just like hit on the main point I wanted to like make?
Sure.
Because
Yeah,
I
go
actually
for it.
have a solution, right? Like, part of it comes down to like, how do you make logistics like? I felt the biggest area and issue with logistics is that it just doesn't change over the course of a war, right? And that like the amount of work that you're putting in at the beginning of the war is the same that you have to put in at the end. Like, there's no buildup, right? Like, I'm gonna I'm gonna reference Factorio here real quick, not because of the automation aspect, but because that game has a really good like gameplay curve where at the beginning everything that you do that is like, oh, you need to make conveyor belts? Okay, well, what do? You have to make the gears and make the plates, right? Which, sure, that's not a lot, but it's difficult to make en masse, and you need a lot of them early game, right? But then once you get it set up, it's a lot easier to do once you get like your factory lines and shit running. And the issue with Foxhole is that you don't really build anything up. It's just always the same amount of difficulty. You don't have any opportunity to change or innovate your like gameplay as Logi. You just play it more.
Yeah, if I may, I do have something to offer there. I actually agree with everything that you said, and I think this falls under exactly the category I was talking about at the beginning of this stream, of the thing that that category of, yeah, I think you're right, and it would be amazing if we could burn an entire big update like the trench warfare one on something like that, and I hope we can. I really hope that even beyond like 1.0, I hope there can be, the logistics logistics infrastructure update or something where we can build out some more of that stuff. But again, it's that category of, we're going to be contending with schedule, we're going to be contending with all the other problems that everyone is screaming about on Reddit. But maybe we should close off on a positive note. I think those ideas are great. And I haven't
even given you the ideas, though.
Oh,
Lev, you take a long time. You take a long time to get to your point.
It's not that. No, hey, you guys went off on your own, like, completely unrelated tangent about
don't bait us.
People not liking logic.
Don't bait us into these good
topics. You guys
topics.
went into that on your own.
All right. Go for it.
Maybe I should have specified the aspect of.
What's your main point? No,
not main point. I already said my main point.
Okay.
I've got the ideas, like the actual, like, here's just general ideas that you could use to like make it build up. For raw resources, it's mostly all there with sledge and this and the harvester. That's like the least you need to work on. But like maybe like some kind of dynamite or like other that you unlock late game, and you go into like underground mines. You have to blow up big rocks before you then harvest them or something like that. That's easy. And then for like production side of things, you just could add on some kind of like maybe player built factories on like bunker bases, because even though that sounds like, okay, well, that would be result in like imbalance or something like that, you have to keep in mind, like, there's ultimately a limit on how many raw resources you have, and there's a certain like amount that you reach, I think, fairly quickly, where factories just ultimately you don't need to make anymore. But I still think like that would be a good way to make it so that it's more like the production side is more dynamic, that kind of thing. And then so far as transport trains, haha, meme, haha. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, look, it's always good to have you around. You'll get what you're seeking someday. I'm just afraid that it
You're
won't be
supposed
what
to be
you want.
2020, man. I'm fucking dying
just
over here,
afraid
okay?
that when you finally get it, it won't be what you want. It won't be exactly what
so
you
long
dreamed
as
of.
it's player, well, it's of course it's not going to be exactly what I want because I've got a lot of things I want. But I'm just hoping player built rail. That's like the number one thing. That's the number one ask.
Mark,
It's the
confirm or
most
deny?
important
Player
ask.
built or pre-made?
I think they already did
Oh, did they?
confirm that
I think
a while
you're right.
back, but like a soft confirm, not a hard confirm. So now's your chance, Mark. Are we gonna get the good rail or the bad rail? Will you please the heretics or the true believers?
Honestly, I don't think it would be Foxhole if players couldn't build their own rails.
That's the answer you gave last time.
That's disappointing for me, but all right.
Fuck you then. Fuck you, you're a heretic.
All right. Hey, Lek, hey, seriously, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Sorry if it went on long. I should have specified, specifically
That's fine.
the build-up
I
aspect,
do go off on tangents. I have a bad habit of doing that.
Hey,
all right, thanks.
This time, normally you can fault me for, going off the rails. No, this time was your fault, motherfucker.
All right,
mine.
I'll take it. I'll take that hit. All right, I'm gonna stop hogging the mic because I really hogged the mic this week. So I'm gonna shut up and go to Terrento joining us here once again. Welcome back.
Hello. Hey, Geoffrey. Hey, Mark. How you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Doing good.
All right. Questions. I'm here for questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one question that is more of a general topic that I want to ask is like the developers' plans in adding more like quote player-to-player interaction within the game, and I mean like that is in a way of the so promised feature of carrying alive players on your back like you do with critically wounded soldiers. Some interaction that you can do. Even flags. Remember flags from the festival? Man, I love those. So, how's the developers' opinions on that?
Are you talking about more items that you carry on your back? Well, I didn't quite understand the part about player interaction.
Yeah, more player-to-player interaction.
Kind of like how medics have to interact with others, right?
Okay, let me give you an example. The thing that sparked this question is like it's a game that I forgot the name. I played a long ass time ago. That it was an FPS, but the thing is that they had these little walls that you couldn't jump on your own. However, you could if you had a friend. So what would happen is that a soldier would go on this wall. Exactly. He had like two options. One is to just help another soldier to go up, and another is to help the soldier, and then he gets pulled up. So I was imagining something like that in Foxholes with hills and even climbing houses, if that is a possibility. That kind of player-to-player interaction.
Oh, okay, I see. Nothing specific planned there, to be honest. I think in terms of climbing up to higher elevations, I think elevation has tended to be something that hasn't worked out that smoothly in Foxhole, so I don't know if we necessarily push into that. I like the idea though of more player-to-player interactions. The one thing that's still on the to-do list is the picking up a wounded soldier, like a live wounded soldier, and I hope we can get that in at some point. Outside of that, I don't know. I mean, you tell me. Like, what other ideas would there be outside of those few things?
I was thinking more like cosmetic things, like actual functionalities. Like the one example that I gave with climbing hills. I don't know. Like I think what Geoffrey said about like more medical interactions, something like that. I mean, it's cool to think and to possibly add, but
so something that we thought would be really cool. I don't know this will ever be a thing, but we were excited about the idea is having another player for the deployed weapons, have another player be the player that has to feed in the ammo. That's somewhat of a player-player interaction, but that was something that we thought would be cool.
I think that was planned for a couple updates ago. Then it got delayed, or at least I think the tripod, right?
Yeah, the tripod and the new heavy machine gun.
I mean, I hope they come. Like, it's cool to at least think about it. And isn't it the vision, the vision to intensify more teamwork interactions? I mean, not limit what you can do as a single soldier, but like give more rewards for players that work together, right? I mean, I was thinking that, like, maybe, for example, I don't know, you could use a machine gun alone if you wanted, but I guess it could reload faster, or you could have better aim if another soldier mounted with you. I think that would be cool, right?
Is this already in the game, or was it or was it for another update where you could hide? No, it's for 40. It's for update 40, where you could hide AT guns or any kind of two person emplacement weapon and in bushes, right?
Yes, that's actually
that might actually. I'm hoping when you mentioned that, I was like, when you revealed that, I was like, I'm really hoping that we'll see an explosion in the, no pun intended, explosion in the use of those AT guns, because I think that's a huge thing that might push them over the edge into mainstream
actually one
use.
huge off topic, but one huge buff is the visibility benefits work with the nighttime visibility too. So at nighttime, field ATs are going to be, I think, really powerful in this coming war, because they would have like a legit advantage against normal tanks, which can't hide at night.
That sounds like hell for a tanker.
I mean, talking about that, what you say, like it never made sense to me, like how in nighttime you couldn't see soldiers until they got dangerously close while you're in a vehicle. But like, even if you tracked all the way back, people still in nighttime could use binoculars and know where you are. I mean, at least I mean, I could be talking shit here. I've been playing a while, so I don't know if this is a feature or not. But like, at least make it so like the vehicle disappears if it's behind a wall or something. Kind of like you guys say, like the AT weapons, like the being hidden in bushes, like vehicles also being hidden and behind walls. Vehicles, I mean.
Yeah, I think we're gonna review visibility in general very soon. So, you know what's another, just going back to your original point, another really cool feature that it's actually not really used a lot, and most players, because we don't do a good job at servicing it, but the slow wounds functionality is another player-to-player interaction.
I love that. I've had so many hero moments with that. No one knows about it too.
Oh yeah,
it's not as relevant anymore because the wounded timer is longer than it was previously.
Right.
But it used to be more common. Nowadays, it's very, very rare.
I think just most people don't know about it. Because that was, my goodness, 2 years ago, I think.
I mean, I still do it. I like to roleplay and be like, Sergeant, please, no, someone call a medic, because I still can't carry him.
But you joke, but those moments are what make the game for me. That's why, going back to what you said earlier, I want a flag. If I can wave a flag around, as completely useless as it is, people would kill to have that flag. And then logistics people will complain about how all their materials are going to flags. Instruments.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, flags could be completely cosmetical, like they were in the festival, but But still, their concept is just too good. Like the moral boost that they give is alone to make them worth it.
Yeah, 200%
Now,
increase in
yeah.
in thrown away lives. I'm sorry. Yeah, we'll close with this.
I'm like now another smaller question that I wanted to ask is like, do you the developers plan to upgrade the vehicle modularity to also weapons, like handheld weapons?
Can you be more specific?
For example, bringing the Volta repeater as an actual side grade for the rifle.
Oh, you mean like variants and things like that?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance we're gonna be doing that. I think it's only natural that we've done some sort of system like that for the vehicles. That something like that it is gonna happen. Because in general, there's been this big focus on vehicles, and I would like to have a big focus on the infantry weapons in the future as well. Because it's, we've always said Foxhole should be an infantry first game, and it is, lopsided balance right now where a big focus has been on the vehicle. So
Is that a critical part of the vision? Infantry first.
Can we add that to the vision?
Yeah, jokes aside, that I actually forgot. You have mentioned that before. Yeah, infantry first and navy last, apparently, but that's a whole other topic. Hey, Terrento.
Planes last.
Yeah, Terrento. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. No.
Oh, I thought that was done. I hate doing that. Coming up next, Spots Blemish. Everyone's favorite caller. Welcome back, Spots.
Oh, I'm back from dead. This time, I'm not giving you this time I have more of a story for you.
Okay, yeah, go for it. We miss our stories. That was the original vision of the show.
Yeah, the original idea of this was the story. So this was just yesterday. I was, doing your normal frontline shit, and oh hey, look, there's an anti-tank half-track. I'm just gonna run up to it, and guess what? They forgot to do. It's Foxhole common sense. Take a guess what it is.
I don't know. You forgot to.
They forgot to lock it.
Oh, I've seen that happen a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah, you just walk up to it and you're like, and they only had a gunner in it. No driver, just a guy just staying in the gunner position. So I walked up, just hop in the driver's seat, and just drove off with it with the gunner still in there.
That is a tale as old as the game itself, or rather, the first vehicle was introduced to Foxhole.
Yeah.
Let's actually pivot that into a question, Mark. Is it not ridiculous? Totally leading the question. Isn't it not ridiculous that someone can just run up randomly to a tank and like sit in it, squat in it, and then like, oh, this is going to be a problem for the next 20 minutes while we figure this out? And granted, yes, they should have locked the vehicle, but it just seems so ridiculous that is a thing, right?
Yeah, you're talking about a scenario where like an enemy. I think there's. I think to add to that, there's also other similar silly things like players already having like take over a relic base and players are spawning there and getting spawn camped, and the players are talking to the players that are wounded that got spawn camped, and there's a lot of like really silly situations like that. I agree.
But for vehicles specifically, because that could be disastrous for a tank crew. So like, I don't know. Other things in other games are, for instance, like you can shoot someone in the driver's seat of like a truck, for instance, to get them out, or you can. There's like an animation. So in Foxhole, when you get into a vehicle, it's immediate. It's you're in, you're out instantaneously. In other cases, you can shoot someone while there's an animation of them climbing onto the tank, for instance. So a lot of potential solutions. I don't know what you were thinking. Maybe some concerted mechanic for ejecting someone that shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, there was a really silly solution tossed around on Team a long time ago that it zooms in and you have to play like a mini game to see who can like out wrestle.
I've thought about that. It's like you have two people spamming the spacebar.
Yeah, like trying to out wrestle and throw the other guy out.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you that is something I hope to get to at some point.
Yeah.
Anyways, I want to continue.
Yeah,
on
go
the
for it. I
story.
just wanted to. Yeah, go for it.
So then I drove it back to the back line because, being shot by AT turrets, like 5 of them, means that you should probably go back and get a repair. Yeah, as well as that, we shot out the crew. The crew left. There was like, and their guy got in because I forgot to lock it, but he got kicked out. He left the vehicle and got killed promptly. And then I drove it back, repaired it, brought it back, and here's the legendary story about how I found a really interesting trick on the map of Alex Bright. So if you're this is at Turtis Course, like that Southern Relic base, right by the water. You know which one I'm talking about?
I think so.
It's the one that's near the southern one near Mercy's Wish.
Mm-hmm.
If you're driving between Silk Farms and Alex Bright, you're gonna go there. You know which one I'm probably talking about. So there's this rock pattern over there. I discovered this really interesting trick. I feel like that you should not patch out. You can get certain armored vehicles up there if you actually have like the mechanical skill to drive it up there. So I got it up on that ground that was it, and we're gonna start sniping the enemy armor. We started doing some sniping, and then we drove back down to help the main push. Then it turned into the greatest gift known to mankind, a bridge fight. We all know
this is like a comedy of errors. I believe 100% of what you're saying right now.
And then we had to go back up there, and then we discovered that we can get across the little river there because it's shallow enough for armored vehicles to drive across. And then we just started sniping vehicles on their side of the bridge. And they're like, where's the shots coming from? That's gotta hurt. Where the shots are coming from, and you figure out it's coming from the high ground and an anti-tank half track, so we became like priority target from all their artillery pieces they had. And then there's a beautiful piece that one of the some guys just posted in Lounge's voice. It's like there was a guy sleeping there, and we're about to run him over, and then he didn't die for some reason. We just drove over him.
Yeah, the roadkill mechanics. That's another silly thing. Where I mean, it's better than before, where the slightest bump could just completely eviscerate someone off the face of the earth. But it's still wonky. It's so.
Yeah.
I think I actually saw the other day a tank. It was going just slow enough. Was it a tank? I don't know anymore. It was just going just slow enough where it couldn't. It was actually like it didn't run over the person, but so then it just kind of stopped there as if it hit a tree stump, and then it's like, well, this is awkward. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, but so we're sniping there, and the gunner was Egg Boy. Mm-hmm. He was my gunner, and we were doing some sniping. And then guess what came out of nowhere?
We'll close it out here. So many twists and turns of the story. This is
you know what they brought up?
What?
They brought up a tracked armor car.
A tracked armor car? So the possibly the most useless thing you could think of, because it's tracked, right? The whole point of the armor car is mobility. Oh my god. They must have been desperate at that point.
So we just saw it, and we just could go, yeah, P, you're dead, and we just shot it. Just the poor tracked armor car was there for like 5 seconds. Now it's gone from this earth.
Oh my god.
And
that sounds right though. That sounds.
And we're just bullying their half tracks on the high ground. It was just as well as that they had brought up 2 anti-tank half tracks to try and deal with one of our ballistas that pushed up too far and got damaged. And we bullied them out of the existence of the earth.
For everyone here, I strongly encourage everyone to look up like war reports, not like from the news, but like individual soldiers like writing up a report. Like today we went on a patrol. This happened. This happened. This happened. And then try and do that yourself after a session of Foxhole. You'll find yourself like, wow, that really did happen. That really is like something that was like the stirring of events that was absolutely insane. And yeah, I think some of that being implemented into the game somehow would be really cool. But that's something that
You know what? I
we'll have to-
actually do agree with the idea. Like,
Yeah.
like maybe give you like a player log of what you did of that day.
Perhaps. Yeah,
Like
but
a
that's
small
a
little
topic.
player log.
That's a topic for another call. But hey, Spots,
right.
thank you so much for sharing your story. All right, coming up next is Stranger Days. Welcome back to the show, Stranger. How you doing? No stranger to this show.
I'm doing pretty well today, in all honesty.
Yeah.
It's like I actually have to mute the stream. Hearing myself twice is no bueno. All right. So I actually have a question for Markfoot here today. What is the Warden vehicle strategy supposed to be?
Just the way you said it. I'm sorry. That is a good question. That is a really good question.
Could you be more specific, or?
Well, it used to be, right? Like, the Colonials had early game on lockdown. I don't think anybody would really disagree that the Colonials had a ridiculously powerful early game lineup. The Wardens were supposed to be late game powerhouses. We had the better but more expensive direct combat BTs. We had the only sources of mobile 68mm guns, and our light tanks weren't all that good, but that sort of lent itself to Wardens having this slow, rolling blitzkrieg strat. But you're removing BTs from the game. The Colonials have a light tank with a 68mm gun. It has actually beyond 45 meters range because range starts from the gun barrel, not the actual vehicle center. And the Colonials still have the light half-tracks, the ATACs, and the mortar half-track, which we saw the Colonials absolutely decimate the Warden lines this war. We just literally weren't able to counter them because the most we had was armored cars. Armored cars, which only costed 10 armats less than a vehicle that had more health, more speed, more range, and a higher damage weapon. We also had the enemy with the ATACs, which were able to destroy our armored cars just in case the HMGs weren't enough. And then they also had the mortar half-tracks to destroy emplacements, which was supposed to be our defensive tool to stop that massive armored rush. And they also had the mortar half-tracks in order to kill garrison houses, which tier 3 garrison houses are the only thing that really stops the war from absolutely blitzing forwards. The Wardens don't have tools anymore. We don't have late game, we don't have early game, and mid game is just even across the factions, because we get like the armored half-tracks for both sides and we get gunboats. What are the Wardens supposed to do? What did you design our faction's vehicles to do? What are we, as a faction, meant to do? Because the Colonials have a very clear lineup. They have early game on lockdown, thanks to those 3 vehicles, and in late game, they have better light tanks. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The only upside to Warden's late game now is the ATHT, but the Colonial Tank Destroyer's literally just a better anti-tank half-track. More expensive, sure, but they're both open top. The Colonial Tank Destroyer is faster off-road and on-road. It has more health. It has more armor. I mean, I suppose that its engine block is in the front of the vehicle, which is kind of bad, but who cares? It'll survive first contact with the enemy vehicles, and then it'll just keep reversing, because it has like a 50-meter range. What do you think the Warden should do? What did you design our tech tree to do? Where is the balance between the Warden and the Colonial faction?
Yeah, I'll definitely give you my take on where the trajectory of that tech tree is going, and also touch upon a couple of those balance issues. But I guess before I do that, like, what my question first is, like, you obviously have very strong opinions on it. What would you do from where it is right now that would make you feel like it would be corrected?
I honestly think that the way that the tech tree was working out before wasn't necessarily right. It lent into a mindset where if the Wardens held out through early game and didn't take significant losses, the Colonials would feel like giving up, and I honestly kind of don't blame them for that. The Silver Hand is a great tank. It has 2 guns on it, and it's not slow. The Warden Juggernauts are great tanks. They have a lot of health. And I do think that Wardens have more field artillery crews in general. Not necessarily better crews, but certainly more crews. I think that a return to the Wardens being a slow late game faction is not right for either side, because it doesn't end well for both of us. I think that instead there should be a focus on giving the Wardens vehicles that can even out that early game setting, that stop it from feeling like I'm a sandbag for an entire week until BTs unlock, which BTs don't unlock anymore because we were using them too often.
And then Mark, do you have any like did you
Yeah,
want
so
to
I
share
agree.
like your thoughts going into that, which may not be exclusively Clapfoot's views, but at least yours?
Yeah, so I do think that the early mid game for the Wardens does need more content, and I know this isn't going to be a resolution for your problem, but the field mortar is going to be much earlier than I think players are going to expect. It's not going to be a late game thing. It's going to be more of like a mid game thing. In terms of the late game, I think there's arguments to be made on both sides, and this is not something that is going to easily for players for anyone to see like eye to eye on, because I've definitely heard the opposite argument from a lot of players that the silver hand doesn't have like an answer, because the DPS is so high and the meta around tank combat is about trying to move forward, get as much DPS as you can, try to alpha strike the enemy, and then you move back. And the speed of the silver hand plays perfectly into that meta. This isn't me. This is the argument that I've heard.
Oh no, I can see that.
And like, so the colonial light tank, we're trying to design it not to be a counterpart of the silver hand, but to overall fill in the end portion of the tech tree so that it doesn't feel as lopsided for the Warden side, as you pointed out. So I think what we do want to do is for the Warden tech tree, fill out the early to mid game. I think both sides need a lot of filling out for the end game. So we do want to bring back the battle tanks. They're not gone like forever. I don't even think it's going to be that many updates, maybe a couple updates before they come back. But I think in general, we don't want it to, like, right now, the issue with the end game, like from our perspective, is that because it's so sparse, these kind of problems, they stick out like a sore thumb. But we want there to be enough variety there that they stop sticking out like such a sore thumb, and it starts becoming just more about like choice, right? It's like where the arguments aren't as clean. It's going to be like, because right now we're literally talking about Silverhand versus like the ATLT, which shouldn't even be.
Oh no, the ATLT versus Silverhand isn't the argument at all. I actually think that the ATLT is just straight up a better ATHT. It serves the same role it has, from what I've been told from several people. They've attempted to convince me to take off my tinfoil hat. They've said that the ATHT's range is going to be buffed up to the same as the ATLT, but the ATLT is a faster, more resilient anti-tank half-track, because it's a light tank body with a 68 gun on it, and it's fixed forwards.
Yeah, so like, you're absolutely right. It's like that comparison is a false one, but we want to get to the point where there's enough things in the end game that we're not these simple comparisons will be less frequent, right? Whereas right now, because there isn't enough things there, like I would like to see a couple of more tanks per side, personally. It's not going to be right away, but I would like to get there, because I do. If there is something that I do, I don't know if I agree. Maybe it's not the point of agreement, but it's something I feel is that the end game for both sides is lacking, right? And because of that, there are some problems there.
On another subject, I
Yeah, we'll close with this.
I actually wanted to bring up an idea for an earlier game Warden vehicle. Now, everybody can agree, I think, that Wardens love their APCs. We've tried to push for APCs to get teched quite a few times, but sadly, our APCs are more akin to the pre-buff APCs, where they're sort of an earlier game vehicle. They can be taken out by SMGs. I was thinking, what if the Wardens had a sort of mobile bunker APC? It wouldn't necessarily be slower, but it would be probably about as expensive as the Doru. And its whole thing would be that it has a firing step that lets players shoot across the front of the vehicle in addition to the other sides, and also that it would have a roof. I think that the roof is actually nifty because it's both a buff and a nerf to the vehicle. It means that it no longer can be used for lobbing more indirect fire weapons such as frag grenades. Maybe still HEs just because of the way that armored warfare and infantry combat versus structures is going to change. But it would no longer be useful for mortars, which mortar APC is one of the quintessential roles that an APC fills on the battlefield. Instead, this would be more like a mobile box that people could fire out of. It, in my mind, fits with the Warden aesthetic of being a defensive faction, while also still maintaining itself as a powerful, potentially aggressive tool, as a full complement of crew could fire out of it on the move, allowing us to attack enemy positions. And unlike our lighter vehicles, it wouldn't be destroyed by a single HMG. Which right now, honestly, one of the big problems Wardens are suffering is that anything that's mobile gets destroyed by an HMG. Anything that's immobile just gets grenades tossed at it.
I like it. I personally like. I don't know what Mark's reaction is on it.
Warden Turtle.
I mean, it sounds cool.
Which is the first, which the devs have admitted that is the thing that they think about first and foremost for a new feature or a new vehicle is it cool? What's the cool factor? And that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, also another downside is that you can't jump out of the sides of the APC, just in case something horrible happens. Everybody's just stuck inside this little metal coffin.
Right. Yeah. It becomes yeah. Coffin's the best word there.
That's the best word to describe a great number of...
Have you written this down anywhere?
No.
Write it down. Think about every possible way that it could be a bad idea. With logistics, economics, and then maybe how it interacts with other vehicles and other things. I actually want to see that play out. Yeah. Which is my request to you. You don't have to, but I don't know.
All right, fair enough.
Might be a good exercise. Anyway, Stranger Days, thank you so much for your suggestion and your questions and your call, as always.
Apparently everybody was very interested in what I had to say because they're all muted and deafened up there.
Well, yeah, in the chat, people are just like, yeah, Warden bunker on wheels. That sounds right up their alley. Which, yeah,
mobile bunker.
This is just the slow takeover of the Imperium of Man from Warhammer
Even
40K.
better. It's an amphibious bunker because it's still an APC.
Yeah, Markfoot, you're gonna have to fight this 40K infringement soon enough.
Well, look. Warden's already spammed signs literally all over our backlines asking if they've praised Callahan today. So I think that Warhammer's firmly rooted in the Warden faction at the very least. Imperialist through and through.
We'll see. All right, hey, Stranger, thank you.
Hey, have a good one.
All right, coming up next, Eggy Boy, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. I don't know if you can hear us or if you're standing by. There you go.
I can hear you.
Hey, what do you have for us? No, you're all good. What's up?
Hi. So, first time on the show. So excuse me if I'm a little stuttery. I'm a little, So I actually had a question about Relic vehicles. I personally was not around during the days of Relic. I've heard stories that they were imbalanced or broken during early game. However, I've always had a soft spot. So it's been amazing to see the Centurion mech make a comeback during Dead Harvest each year. And I was lucky enough to actually be in one of the 2 prototypes I know of during War 63's Resistance phase. But my question is there a future for them? Or any vehicles from wars that are now long past Like, will we ever see anything ancient again? I've
Like the relics.
I heard about that. Yes. So I heard about that that vehicle that got leaked on the dev branch, but surely there's a little more, and of course there's the existing relics. I was curious if they had a future.
Yeah, I think they do. I think we love the idea of the relics, and I think we'd like to see them back at some point. And it's a cool part of the lore, and I think it's always been nice for us to be able to sort of have a fresh breath of air by bringing them back in various ways, or maybe like adding to them. And we're gonna continue to do that in the future. I don't think that's something that is gonna go away. So
Perhaps
I'm glad to hear.
perhaps more important than the relics themselves is how they're acquired, right? So we've gone from they just kind of randomly pop up and then you got to dig them out. They're in a vault and then you got to blow them out. Are we going to see a return of the vault system, or maybe something like a more concerted, a more rare, kind of like pop up in the world system, randomly generated that way?
I'm not sure. I think like we'd have to figure it out. But I like the first system we had. It was just very difficult to balance it, and it just became this sort of like Easter egg hunt at the start of the war, which didn't quite. The thing we wanted, right, which is always difficult in a game like this, is we wanted to be this surprise that players, oh, I found the tank. This is cool. It's like I found a lost piece of the history. But in a PvP game like Foxhole, it doesn't work out that way. It just turns out that at the start of the war, the moment that the gates open, everybody scours the world in the fastest vehicle they can get, a truck, at some point like a scout vehicle, and they'll just drive around trying to squeeze out every last bit of these to try to use it to win. And it kind of, I totally get it, but it ruins that feeling of like, hey, this was cool. We just found this thing. It was like halfway buried in the ground, right? So yeah. And then with the vaults, I don't even want to talk about that one. That was like players figured out how to break into it before it was time, and we had this whole thing planned out of it being a surprise, and people found a way to glitch. They built out this whole site like a base, both factions working together, trying to figure out how to glitch into this thing. So that was a bit of a failure. I don't know, right?
I am a fan of the first. I don't know, Eggy Boy, were you around for the first iteration of Relics?
That's one of the things I mentioned. Is I was not, unfortunately. I wish I was though.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I think the main problem was that it was just a lot. There were so many of them, and they were like candy. You could just pick up off the ground, and it was so easy to acquire them, and there were so many in a region, maybe like half dozen in a region at any given moment, or something like that.
I mean, it really wasn't though. Like
it wasn't. It felt like that. That was the problem, though.
Yeah, even if it felt like that, though, I think much of the sentiment of why I felt that way is because how powerful they were, and how they weren't balanced for the beginning of the war. So one side kind of got steamrolled, and I think a lot of the feeling came from there. But there really wasn't. There was like in the entire world, there was like a couple of them per side at the very beginning, and it's just that if you happen to have gotten all of them, because that's the thing, players went around and found them and they grouped together, and when you had 4 of them together, they were like unstoppable at the beginning. And that was the problem, right? It wasn't randomly found by people. It was a concerted effort to try to like min-max. The min-maxing thing, right? Anything you put in the game has to go through like the min-max test. It's always going to happen. players trying to min-max. I mean, it's a PvP game, so can't blame anyone.
One storm tank in one of the center regions, and you need like 20 people shoveling it to get it out. And it's like 5,000 shovel points to get at it, and then it becomes this thing that people fight over. I don't know. Eggy, sorry, I'm pushing you out of your own call. What's up?
All right. In addition to the relic vehicles, I had a question about another vehicle. So, Mr. Spots earlier mentioned that I was in a half track with him, and on the topic of half tracks,
Are you Spots' brother?
No, I am not. My
Okay.
brother is actually in the background.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
I thought that was Spots.
It sounded like Spots in the background.
Yeah, no, I hear my brother sounds like me. But I was curious about the HHC. So I've asked Matt about it a couple of times, and if you look at the colonial vehicles, there's 3 variants. There's the A, which is the standard half-track, the Javelin. There's the B, which is the Hoplite, the up-armored, but also slower vehicle.
Oh,
And then there's the D, which is the Peltav. That's the mortar half-track. And I personally believe, also seeing the blinder on the Warden side, that half-tracks are some of the most diverse vehicles out there. And logically, A, B, C, D, that should be the order of things. So I was curious, is there a vehicle that you're hiding from us?
I honestly, Matt would kill me. I couldn't, we talked about that, and I think he would kill me if I answered that. Because he holds the lore very precious to his chest, and he likes to keep it close to the chest, right? He doesn't like to expose it all. So I unfortunately I can't answer that because again, Matt will be very upset with me. But about the half tracks though, they are designed to be the most flexible platform vehicles in the game. So that's the vehicle that we're comfortable with putting all kinds of different weaponry on top. So there will this is going to be the unsatisfactory vague answer, but I think there will be more half tracks in the future. And sorry, that's all I got.
Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear it. I like half tracks; they're fun. But that's honestly all from me. So thank you guys for bringing me on. It's been a pleasure.
Excellent call. Thank you so much, Eggy Boy. Appreciate it. All right, coming up next, we got members of the Red Cross making their triumphant return, I think. Haven't seen them out on the field too much. Probably have been on for a while, but I just haven't personally seen them. But France of the Red Cross, as well as the compatriots there, how are you?
Thank you. Well, I'm fine, actually. Quite tired, but fine, yeah, thank you.
I think Mark can relate.
We're glad to be here.
Is the Red Cross coming back in force?
Well, it is actually. We are again quite rebuilding it more. We are trying to make it more based on the actual ideas and ideas of the actual Red Cross, like the ICRC. So yes, we are quite in the reconstruction now, and but yes, I see a bright future actually.
Yeah. Did you have a question for Mark?
Well,
or do you just want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Eddie.
Well, yeah.
I believe Eddie did.
I did.
Because I've got a question for the Red Cross.
Oh, all right.
I don't know. I don't know what I ambush you with this, but I guess I'll say that I've always been curious because there's always been a bit of pushback against the Red Cross because, if I'm not mistaken, the Red Cross seeks out the wounded of both sides. Is that correct?
Yes,
that is correct.
So then, if you're, say, a colonial member of the Red Cross, you will actively go out and heal or revive wardens, as well as colonials, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, actually, we do have some inner regulations and rules about that because it's quite controversial with this. So to show others that we also like our we are not that role play actually. The the Red Cross medic should first give
Heal
attention.
their own, yeah.
Yeah, heal their own, and then it's optional. They can also heal the enemy. Well, the primary goal is still to save as many lives. So.
Okay. So kind of you've adjusted it so that you are prioritizing more so the members of a Red Cross's faction own members as opposed to very actively seeking out members of the opposing faction. Because I think that was the big point of contention. A lot of people were saying, yeah, no, you've become an asset to the enemy, so we're going to shoot you in that sense.
Well, for example, the last operation we had at Saturday, there was a quite interesting situation when we needed to, our team, our Warden team needed to surrender in matter of saving its own lives. So they were actually helping the colonial team with AC armored cars, but there was actually a model situation when the Warden soldiers, just the normal soldiers, were exploiting this by basically coming and saying that they are from Red Cross, even they were not wearing the tag or something. So they was just exploiting it to raise their sticky bombs run success. So they were quite abusing it, but well, that's as I can also put the Warden in Navy tech and go and just make some mess. Well, so it's not a thing actually that can be somehow solved. It's about each person.
It's inherent. Yeah. It's inherent to the organization itself. So I can't imagine you guys having to strike that rule altogether. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I'm hoping that the latest wave of newcomers, in conjunction with the grizzled old vets like myself, can hope to see you in a different light, because it's always been a shame to see any pushback against you, Chris, because I do appreciate what you do. You're kind of the other big role play group in Foxhole, so in some ways I have much sympathy. I don't know. I think you just have to make some adjustments so that maybe you don't help out the other side too much. We'll see how that plays out, though.
Yeah, well, that's why we decided to focus more on less controversial things, like the official ideas of the Red Cross itself, than at the role play. But of course, many our members are here. It's like 50-50. Some of them are here for the different role play, but some of them are here for the different play style. Sorry, and some of them are here just for the role play. So, well, the role play is actually in the Red Cross. It's quite a strong part of it. Maybe we cannot even separate it from us, but it's just a thing that gives us more opportunities at the actual field and operations. But as I said, it's all about people and individuals, how they will treat us.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out. I'm looking forward to it. Did you have anything else for us here? As we'll close out the call.
Actually, we do have a few questions.
Yeah, sure. Get to your most burning question.
Yes, currently bandages are multi-use, for stopping your own bleeding or for medkits, but we were wondering if there'd be an extinction with multi-use, like maybe a down soldier, always a soldier has mostly a bandage on them. Maybe they can help their friend that's down by stemming their bleeding with a bandage while then got run off and defend them till the medic arrives. Like,
yeah, I think I would love to see that sort of thing in the game. I think the medic game is always one of those things that gets like overshadowed because it's not a big topic like logi or combat is. But I would love to see more an expanded game for the medics in the future. I really, it's not the highest thing on the list, but personally, it really excites me. So I think your idea that you mentioned is exactly the kind of thing that we would like to do. And really, anything in that direction would be cool.
Random thought. So currently, for medics, has been for all time, I think. Actually, not quite. You have the trauma kit and the medic kit. One for healing, one for trauma. I've actually completely forgotten now. Was there a point in time where there was just one unified tool?
I believe there was always two, but
there were always two. Okay.
The big change was, well, in any kind of, like, if we're not talking about like pre-alpha, like really long time ago.
Sure. Yeah.
But anything after like early access, the change was the blood plasma.
Yes, that kind of the ammunition for the healing and the reviving.
That's right, and the hospitals.
And the hospitals, right? Has there been, like, do you think, is there a particular reason why? I understand the ammunition, that I get, the plasma and the bandages. Is there a particular reason, like, or I should rephrase it, is it a little too much that you need a separate trauma kit and then a separate med kit in order to apply each skill to someone?
Yeah, I mean, some of it there is like this was made a long time ago, but if I recall, the decision there was, well, if you're a medic, we don't want you to be carrying too much other equipment. Otherwise, everyone would just
that's true.
carry these things around because it would just be like a no-brainer. But now you have to choose your primary between a primary weapon like a rifle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't want medics running around with grenades, right? I mean, they can, but I don't want that to be a main thing. Grenadier medics.
There's a possibility with that.
High explosive medics.
High explosive.
No.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I had not thought of that, and that's one of the many things you don't think about. All right, hey,
Just
Red
put a
Cross.
sticky.
Oh, sorry, what were we going to say?
Just put a sticky on the back of something.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen that. It's
Hey,
not
Red
good.
Cross, thank you so much for stopping by. France, I want to point out your English is getting better every time you come on this show. Every time I run into you, your English is getting better and better.
Oh, well, thanks. I really remember that time when I came first, really scared a bit and on coffee, actually. So
Yeah. It's gotten really
well,
good.
well, we actually just to point out how the Sunhaven Treaty is going on, because at that first meeting, you, Geoffrey, you was like, yeah, we will be excited to see some manifesto or something like that. So currently we do have 326 signs of course, individuals. There is no option for like clans to just sign it as a whole. But well, it's expanding slowly, but it is.
That's good to hear, and I cannot wait to see you guys out on the field again in earnest. So, Red Cross, thank you so much for stopping by.
Can I make one last comment? I apologize.
Sure, yeah, quick comment.
The game is awesome. Love the game. Want the medic field expanded. And can we get it changed to Aquatic Croft, please?
What?
Can we get Godscroft swapped to
get out of here. Get out of here. All right, hey, thanks. All right. Coming up next is the Swords of Morrow, or at least one member of them. Nocturne, was there someone else you wanted in here with you?
I believe, yeah, Seeker, if he's still free, yeah.
Let me adjust. I need to adjust a lot of volumes tonight because I've got a new setup specific. But in any case, Nocturne, Seeker, welcome to Zero Dark PressCorps. What do you have for us here tonight?
Yeah, some stories, a little bit of like insight as well for this war that just occurred.
Yeah, go for it.
Got two questions.
You can go with questions first.
I have you guys, Markfoot, have you guys ever thought about adding some type of
non-defensive AI to Foxhole.
So you're talking about like a. What are you talking about? Let's start there.
Give an example of non-combat AI. I guess
Maybe like a
go for it.
Just like a soldier that might just like walk around a base.
I think that's a hard no, right?
Yeah. So the hard thing about that is that like one of the big rules that we had at the beginning is that if you see any physical character in the game, it's a player. And I guess you can argue that we broke that rule a little bit with like the critically wounded soldier. But I guess that because that character model isn't moving around, it's not active, that we were a little bit more accepting to it. But anything that moves, if suddenly, it's a big jump. It might break, especially from the perspective of a new player, when you're trying to teach them that every soldier is a player, and suddenly a soldier is a bot. It just kind of breaks that magic a bit. So that's where the trade-off is. We haven't thought about that. We've thought about other things like these are wild ideas. They're kind of related, but possibly allowing players to control AI structures as a way. This is going back to like the player imbalance discussion at the very beginning.
Oh,
this is a wild idea. It was like if one side is like if they don't have as many players, allow a player to almost get into like the commander seat at a town and like take control of like the garrison houses or something, and being able to use them. Wild idea, never happened, but that's I guess somewhat related to this.
That's a cool idea. I don't know if that would work at all, but yeah.
It's wild, yeah.
But you already. I mean, the big AI in the game is the automated defenses, which is the unseen but very much present AI, and that's not going away anytime soon. Even if the game was constantly overpopped both sides for a whole year. I think we continue to see that. I think, and stop me if you disagree, Mark. But and then also the other one is, I guess, the factories, right? Technically, there's someone assembling things in the factories. You don't want someone literally assembling guns as you make them. But I don't know. Did you guys have any other ideas? Because I don't know.
Well, for me, at least, that was just more of a curiosity. If it had just ever come up.
Because the other big one is transport, right? Like automated truck drivers. But that would be kind of kill the fun of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, did you have any other question? The other question?
Yeah, sorry. My other question was, do you guys still have plans to use those tripod-mounted weapons, like the heavy machine gun that was supposed to do arc fire and the 20mm infantry support gun and stationary fuel tanker?
Yeah, there was a lot there. I think yes to all the above. I think the tripod stuff, we have taken a lot longer to implement that for sure than what was planned. But it's still in the pipeline, and I think we're still good. Some of the specifics might change. The indirect fire, I think we're reviewing that. But yeah, I don't know. It's still definitely planned. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering my question, Mark, and thank you, Jeff, for having me on the show.
Lex says Geoffrey, but he does despite me. But in any case, yeah, no problem. Thank you. I know you can stick around because I think Nocturne, he wanted to share the call with you. So Nocturne, yeah, you had something?
Yeah, it's I actually onto the AI sort of suggestion, and it's a small one, but it could have a major impact. And the limitation for it is in a titanium sort of box of unchanging, where essentially only in backline completely secure regions. None of the hexes, none of the bases can be enemy occupied. If you set down a blueprint for a certain structure, Like, let's say you want to make a long series of walls around the town, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like a couple of people, like let's say 10 people, vote on yes, this should be built. AI comes out and builds it with the resources needed. If only there are no enemies in the area, like I said, none in the region. All the bases have to be of your faction. And if the resources are there. If it's even missing by one resource, it will not build.
So sort of like in the background, like AI
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
So like this won't just be like everyone votes for it and it's immediately built, but it's like, let's say however long it would take a player to do it. Like, so for these walls, it would have like a single AI character hammering away at that location, but all the walls.
Yeah, it's definitely a wild idea and a pretty big departure from what we're used to in Foxhole. I think it's a like unlikely chance for that. But if there is something that I might want to offer is I know that like I think there could be another game that was made around something like that where there is more of like imagine a Foxhole game, but instead of you controlling one player, it's more like it's like massive multiplayer real-time strategy game where you're actually clicking on bots and like controlling them. I think there is something there. Yeah, in Foxhole, it's cool. It's definitely a very big departure from what's already there. But I have to ask, like, what is the motivation behind that suggestion? Is it that you feel like you'd want to get more done, but you feel like you're stretched too thin as one character? Like, is that where this is coming from?
Yeah, that is kind of like where it's mainly coming from, because you can have like let's say, for the sake of it, 30 people clear a region, right? 30 versus 30, they clear the region of the enemy. Cool, alright, so now we need people hanging back to do some building, right? 5 people hang back, 25 go forward. Alright, now those 5 people are all building. One person gets tired, now there's more work for 4, then that person gets tired, more for 3, and then eventually it all collapses. With this is more of like, okay, these 5 people go around and kind of set the blueprint for how this AI would do it. So instead of doing it all on their own, they have this assistant also helping them.
Right. Yeah. I think it would be nice if we could solve that problem in another way besides a bot. Maybe some of the stuff that that Lek was pointing out earlier, where being able to build out more infrastructure that might help you be more productive in the game. So like, even though that the suggestion is like it's a pretty big departure, but I think with that particular problem, like there might be a way to like address that at some point in the future.
I sympathize with it because anytime I walk up to a fresh 250 scrap pile, and then I notice there's literally no one around me, I'm like, well, I guess it's just me today, right? And it's like, it'd be cool if I had someone around. Which you can do a call out on chat box, but it doesn't always happen, and there's always something to do, which is good, but there's also this weird like demoralizing aspect to that as well, which is that's not something to fix. That's just how people are and how certain people react to it. But I don't know, maybe there's a way to alleviate that for certain people without making things too easy. That's the hard part of figuring all that out.
Yeah. My second sort of question is
we'll close out with this.
Yeah, it's more of a putting Mark to the grill. We may have found some weapon variants in the dev branch files for a seeming Warden AT rifle, giving this distinctive marking that hasn't been seen on any other weapons. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, that shouldn't have been there in the first place. So,
Oops.
Oopsies.
it's yeah, I choose not to comment on it because
That's fair.
it was not supposed to be there.
My tiny bit of input though. For weapons that are like far off like that, and they're like accidentally left in, like that tank that was left in by accident. I think it should just be like instead of patching it out, just like say like, yeah, you found it, all right, just go run around with it. It doesn't do much, or it does something, but it's not what we want it to do.
I mean, that is kind of what he's saying.
I mean, a bunch of this stuff is also like not necessarily planned anymore, or it might be gone, and like various stages of development. It might cause. I think the bigger problem is that it might cause like bugs because they're not finished feature. It might trigger something that might bring down the dev branch or things like that. In general, having highly incomplete content in the game in a build running around is very unstable. So I think there's reasons beyond just like, we don't want you to see this because it's something that's planned for later. So yeah.
All right. Nocturne, Seeker Hunter, thank you so much for stopping by.
All right, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Mark, you got any left?
I do, but this has to be my last one because there's some issues going on with the dev branch that.
Oh, you're right back into it. I thought you were about to say I'm done for the day. Screw this game. I don't want to think about
one
this.
more.
Okay.
And they got to go back and fix this.
I don't think Brownie's here. I think I'm missing him. So that's okay. Well, so I guess we'll give it to Flamingo of the Locks outfit. Flamingo, welcome back to Zero Dark PressCorps.
Hey man, how you doing? How's everyone?
Doing well. Was there anyone else in Locks joining, or just you?
Me. I'm solo this time.
That's all good.
So anyway, Markfoot, I'm sure you're aware the whole vision thing has sort of become a meme in the community. Especially with, I don't want to say, sometimes we don't get a lot of forewarning on major changes. Like, if you can remember when you removed the gun nests and the pillboxes, like that was, it was a post in FOD, the BT thing, that was kind of stuck at the end of a dev stream. And this isn't about that. You can do whatever you want when it comes to telling us stuff, but I would like to just ask about the vision as a concept in how has it changed, how has it edited, and how did that specifically tie into this decision to remove BTs?
Yeah, I mean, it's in terms of the vision. The vision has never changed, and I think that all vision jokes aside, I think that it's not any. I've seen sort of feedback on like, well, I don't like this change. It was because of the vision, and we have to live with it. And I think that that's quite far from the truth. There's a vision which is a bunch of goals, and we're trying to arrive at these goals, and we have to try different things to try to reach it. Sometimes we do something and it's bad. It's just actually working against the goals. Like maybe if we remove the gun nest, it actually worked against it. It did something that was bad for the vision, as opposed to, this XYZ change was made because of the vision. It's definitely not a black and white thing of that sort, right? I do think if there is a valid criticism is that we have changed things very drastically over the years, and sometimes very suddenly, and I think that we probably should do a better job in giving people, even if we do that, we should probably give people more of an expectation that that's going to happen. But I think that is the part of, so to expand this out slightly, that's part of the early access that we like to use. So I see sometimes on like the Reddit where people are sort of cutting us slack because something isn't quite good, and they're like, well, it's like early access, so you should cut them some slack. And I thank you guys for those players for saying that, but at the same time, I don't generally like to use that as an excuse. If something is broken in the game or something is bad, I don't think it's a valid excuse to say it's an early access game, it should be broken, and that's fine. However, the one thing that I do feel comfortable with doing on sort of the early access, taking advantage of the early access phase, is making changes, because we want to find eventually in the long run things won't be changing this wildly all the time and unexpectedly, and we're doing all that. Part of the reason why we sometimes do that quickly now and why that changes so much is because we're trying to get all of that kind of like out of the way now that it is early access. We can be like, well, we're experimenting, we're changing this to see if this is going to work, we're going to do this to see if that works. That part we are comfortable with doing, and we're doing it so that in the long run, this will be hopefully less frequent, right? So I don't know if that answers any of that question there.
I think specifically tying it to battle tanks and how they had to be temporarily removed, right, until probably, I don't know, the winter update or after.
So like something like that is a perfect example. Like, it's not in that case, it's easy to just say, oh, because of the vision, that's why it happened. But that has nothing to do with the vision, right? I think that has to do with like us trying to figure out how to balance the tech tree, because in fact it's based on player feedback. We actually heard a lot of players tell us that, like, hey, the end games become stale. It's just a competition of who can pump out the most amount of battle tanks. And in order for us to build out the rest of the end game, and to bring back the battle tanks in a way that isn't going to dominate everything else in the tech tree, that's why we're doing it. And that has nothing to do with these larger goals of like the vision. It's more of a balance thing. It's more of like an implementation strategy than it is any sort of like, like philosophical like debate that is happening there.
There's long-term changes, and then there's short-term. We just need to get this done or get it working. So I've noticed.
Definitely gives a lot more detail on like how decisions are made and exactly why they are. Because you gotta be honest, sometimes stuff just kind of happens in early access, just across the board in a lot of different games. So you can understand people can be a little sus when you just kind of like, okay, was I gun this thing, like pull it out on Discord a couple of days later. But I actually have a little extra question. It should only take you a little while.
Sure, we'll close the whole show with this one. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, Markfoot, could you read my name real quick? Just gotta click on it, it's a little long.
Geez.
Could you just read that out? Pretty please?
I would, but my Discord is not stretching out. Like, this is totally not a lie. I'm not trying to stall or anything. I just can't.
I'm gonna remove Gods.
Why do you hate Godscroft? Can you accentuate why? Quickly.
No one wants. It's a wasteland of hell and shit. It's like the Barrens from fucking WoW.
Details. Give me details. What do you hate specifically about? Is it just the fact that the map flow is bad? Is it how the towns are laid out?
Bro, it just sucks. I mean,
give me details. Come on, give me details. Is it the bridge fights because there's so many bridges?
Bro, are you saying you like Godscroft?
Okay, you're not being fair here. Why don't you like the region? I genuinely don't understand.
It's just a barren wasteland of nothing in islands and nothing.
Because it's a periphery island. I've completely forgotten where it is. It's in the southeast. No, in the northwest. No, that's the north.
Yeah, that's the problem with Godscroft. It just doesn't matter, and no one cares. Why is it in the game?
Okay, so then I guess you could argue that with a lot of the periphery maps, with the islands, I don't know. I know I've talked about this before with map, but like, you want to make those island maps more relevant? Give us like 3 hexes around them of just nothing but open sea, and then give us a functioning naval aspect to the game, and that'll make things interesting. Won't be so useless anymore.
Definitely an idea.
It'll take like a year's worth of work, but you know, might fix Godscroft.
Yeah, Mark, any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, you don't like the map. I mean, I think that's.
You won't go into
fair.
why, but yeah, you don't like it.
Yeah, correction. No one likes the map, but you know.
Why? I mean, there's probably very obvious
literally
reasons.
pick anyone in FOD and ask them if they like Godscroft.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you right now.
Because it's boring and stupid, and it's just bridges.
Boring, stupid, and bridges. Okay, bridges. There it is. That I think that's the cusp of it.
Bridges, and it's not even cool-looking bridges. It's like boring text asset bridges that you stole from somewhere in Unity.
I think the bridges is the heart of it. I think that's what it is, and probably the map flow too. And a lot of problems with island maps. I think that's what it really is.
It's like the bridgiest map in the game.
I get that. I do sympathize with that. But in any case, I've forgotten you. Flamingo, thank you so much for stopping by.
You're welcome. My correct name is I'm going to remove Godscroft.
Okay.
Have a good one. Have a nice night.
Actually, you know, the funny thing is, I legit, like, my UI is legit blocked. It's not long enough. Like, I'm trying to stretch it open, and, like, that wasn't an excuse.
You know, this is just dev anti-colonial bias, I'm assuming, you know. So, you know, I should be expected against this. Have a nice night, guys.
All right, have a good one. All right, hey, that's the show. Markfoot, we really put you through the ringer tonight, and particularly because you're coming, you came out of development, and now you're gonna jump right back into development. Extra overtime here at 10 o'clock in the evening, your time. Mark, thank you so much.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Your pleasure. Okay, if you say so. No, but hey, thank you so much for donating your time.
You're welcome.
Have a good one. All right, that's our show, ladies and gentlemen. Again, as always, my sincerest apologies to those we could not fit in. I always try to find a balance between trying to really make these calls matter, trying to get the most out of these questions the best I can, but you know, we can't get everyone in. I wish we could. It's getting to the point. I used to stick around and have the other callers in to close it out, but it's getting to the point where I can't even. I can't do that. But hey, War 64 was a fun one to watch from the distance. Hopefully, the PressCorps will be back in earnest. We're looking at the winter update. That we're really crossing our fingers that'll be a thing. Hopefully, with some big surprises in tow, some new things here. But at the very least, you can always stop by and submit to the Newswire and stick around for other Zero Dark PressCorps. Stop by the Discord. You'll get some interesting interaction. I'll give you that much. Anyways, that is our show. Thank you so much. For the PressCorps, I'm Geoffrey Jennings. Good night. Good fight.
The PressCorps is a non-profit creative collective of artists, reporters, and players from the MMO video game Foxhole by Clapfoot. Our mission is to engross our audience in and amplify the stories of this unique war ecosystem. The PressCorps was founded in early 2018 by former PlanetSide 2 Radio Free Araxis host, Captain-in-Arms. It is a separate community entity and is in no way representative of Clapfoot. For more info, visit the PressCorps Discord through the link below.